Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is not a Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies, and I'll explain what this is in a moment. But first things first. This is about Trump supporters and Trump enablers and Trump. It's not about Joe Biden, and isn't about how Trump is the only guy who can beat Joe Biden, because that's simply not true. That almost anybody would be better against Joe Biden than Trump, and I'll explain that in a moment. So that kind of comment where you say, oh, would you rather have Biden, is unnecessary and stupid. It's just showing your ignorance and your inability to accept information that you don't want to hear. That's what this is about for Trumpers. Information that you can't hear, won't hear, and you don't have any real argument for. Inside yourself. This isn't about me and arguing with you. This is about you realizing how bad you've been duped and how embarrassing it is for you to support Trump. The second piece is, and this is your defense mechanisms. These are things that Trumpers say to avoid facing the hard, cold truth about their guru, God, whatever, their messiah, their savior in Trump. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I was very happy when Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Those of you who were around in 2016, like my kids were happy, and I was happy. My kids noticed I was really just giddy for like a week. That morning when MSNBC and all these, CNN and Rachel Maddow's and all these people were weeping and freaking out the whole election night when they were like, Trump might win. They went into the thing thinking it was a shoo-in for Hillary. And then Hillary herself, all of it. It was absolutely wonderful. Trump in his last debate, he seemed to quit. And I don't think he really was serious about winning the presidency in the beginning. I think he did it for publicity, and it just took off. And he got kind of addicted to it, but I don't think he ever thought he was going to win in the first place. I thought he was just going to use it to, booster his own brand and everything. But somehow he won, and it was great. It was great for so many reasons. And then I enjoyed Trump presidency for about 3 years. I liked how the people were losing their minds over Trump's inability to act presidential and tweeting in the middle of the night and getting into, whatever Trump gets into. And as a show, it was great. And I loved how he provoked the left and the left-leaning media. Now, I didn't vote for him, and I didn't vote for anybody. I haven't voted in years. And, so it wasn't like I cared one way or another about it politically. But in terms of my show, in terms of the enjoyment of watching this show, not this show here, my show, but the big show, the everything I call the show, the beastly show. It made it great. Trump made it great. He was my favorite president, the character as president in the show. Really enjoyed it. And so it was only Trump's complete collapse and getting exposed that made me, look at him in a different way. Because it wasn't as enjoyable when he got worked on COVID. He rolled out Operation Warp Speed, which is ridiculous. He got worked on that. And now he's trying to backpedal, which, I just covered in another video. But he can't backpedal. He closed down the economy, and he let them work him on COVID, and then they worked him on the election, and then what he did in the post-election, and everything he's done ever since has been a bummer. He sucks now. Where he was funny before, he's just a cancer. Now he's a cancer on our society. He is the biggest problem. As long as he's there, he's always going to create division. He is just a polarizing, nightmare, selfish, demonic, entitled demonic figure that is always going to just create bad feelings, hatred and bad feelings between people. And it's not going to go away. And so let me get into it. Let me discuss all the reasons why I'm saying this. I just covered 5 of his, recent, I don't know what you would call it, these little videos he made that are almost like tweets, where he's just causing more division, acting more selfishly, and he should just go away, and the Trumpers should stop supporting him. Because you should be able to see by now, he's only going to make things worse. He's a cancer. He's not a solution. He's toxic. And he should have just went away after losing the first time. But he's, selfish in that way, and he wants to go out, in his mind being a winner. He'll never be a winner. So let's get through it. So first of all, Joe Biden doesn't really have a chance against anybody else, right? The Democrats are running a campaign solely against Trump and MAGA Trump, whatever, MAGA Republicans, as Biden calls them. And that's their whole campaign strategy. They can't run on Joe Biden's record because people, even Democrats, think he sucks. He would have been slaughtered by a reasonable Republican candidate other than Trump when he ran the last time in 2020. Joe Biden is senile. He's a nightmare. And their only excuse was Trump was some sort of dictator that was going to take our country into some sort of totalitarian nightmare and run it into the ground, and cheating or doing anything possible to make sure that didn't happen, and that this racist sociopath had to be stopped at all costs. And you could break any rule to do it. That's what they did. That's how they planned to do whatever they did. And if Trump isn't there, they can't run that campaign. And they can't run on their ideas. They can't run on their strategy. No one likes it. No one likes the Democratic liberal. I mean, the majority of people don't. There's some fans of it, but the majority of people aren't those people. The majority of people that vote for Biden are Trump haters. If Biden was running on his own as a candidate that wanted support on his own, stand on his own merit, he wouldn't be able to be elected. He's unelectable based in what he's accomplished as a lifelong politician, and the issues he has, his plagiarizing, his lying, his groping, his snoozling, his being a gaffe magnet, his personality, his dementia now, right, all of it, being too old. So the only person he can really beat is Trump, because Trump is so disliked. Trump had, recent poll had Trump, 53% of the people say they'll never vote for Trump, never, under any circumstances. So that's more than half of the likely voters, so he's already lost. Another 11% said they're highly unlikely to vote for him. And so that's, 64%. Now, he has a very passionate 30% following that's more passionate than any other group, you Trumpers. And your passion is like a joke. You're punking yourself. You're making yourself look like a fool because you shouldn't be passionate about this guy. And he can't do anything. We already know. The second thing is we know what a Trump presidency looks like. And they worked him so hard and worked the Trump hatred so much that they brought in a new definition of gender. That was one of the big things they did. I mean, brutal stuff like that. And that was number one. But then, then there was all the other COVID stuff. That was probably number one, the COVID stuff. And the way they closed down the economy and everything that they did in terms of looting the government because of the pandemic, all those, outcomes, right? So if you think about all that stuff that happened under Trump, what do you think is worse under Biden? Like, they couldn't do the stuff under Biden because the Trump haters were pacified. They were in a actionable group. Remember the riots that were happening? There was places in Portland and Seattle where the police just withdrew and the rebels, like the rioters, were running. Remember Chaz? I covered Chaz. It was an area where these protesters were governing themselves, and the city withdrew, and they were occupying these parts of these liberal cities. I mean, it was ridiculous. That all happened under Trump, and all the things that led to his the disastrous election night and the post-election nights that he had, and then the big event in January. And Trump just played himself. Then he turned on his own supporters and blamed them for something that he caused them to do. He's a disaster. He's selfish. He's, entitled. He's like a boob, right? He's just a complete stooge or rube or whatever, pigeon. I mean, he's just a, guy is always thinking he's doing great, but he's getting played and worked, and he's cheap and mean-spirited and difficult to be with. He's a philanderer. He's cheated on all his wives, and he's just a bad guy. He's a cancer. He's just selfish, and everything he touches turns to crap. He's gone bankrupt 3 times, twice at least, all this stuff. And so he isn't going to, there's no making America great again. He has these false promises. He's a flim-flam man. And if he couldn't do it the first time, he's certainly not going to do it this time. And he didn't do it the first time, no matter what you think about his record. And so supporting him, thinking that he's the only one who can beat Joe Biden is wrong. And thinking that he's going to do a better job, you already know he isn't, because you know how bad he got worked the first time. You know what he did, and you know what the eventual outcome was. So he's not going to make things better, and he really can't win. But let's say they decide Trump should win. They just pick him to win. They think they can get more out of him, and they have him win. Then the country will be in a state of chaos, and it'll be on the verge of like a civil war. It's already, on that way with even with Joe Biden. Stupid Joe Biden in there. But if Trump becomes president again, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be exacerbated, and there'll be just drama upon drama, and more about Trump and making Trump the center of everything. What you're looking at is if the Trump supporters withdraw their support from Trump, find some reasonable crappy one of these other crappy Republican candidates that can't be demonized nearly as bad. And no matter how they try to, turn him into the next Trump, he won't be the new candidate. So if they had, any reasonable candidate or, her and Nikki Haley or something like that, if it's a her like Nikki Haley, allegedly. But let's say the Trumpers bail on Trump. Then all of their strategy just is obliterated. They lose everything. They don't have a backup strategy. And again, they can't run on the merit of their arguments and their policies. And so MSNBC and CNN collapse. The ratings already suck, and people have Trump fatigue. They take Trump out of there. What are they going to do for content? They can, rag on some new candidate, but it's not going to carry the same weight. And people will just be glad Trump is gone, right? The constant drama of having Trump around. Everyone's going to be like, thank God. And so they lose their media. They lose any advantage they have in terms of their political process. And now they got to come up with a new strategy. And what is their strategy going to be? They've been, a parasite off of Trump hatred, like they've been piggybacking off of the division that Trump causes and using that as their centerpiece to their, to their worldview and their business models. And what are they going to do? What would be their backup plan? Immediately that collapses. And you're keeping that going. Like, support of Trump is keeping the left empowered, keeping the left energized, and keeping their dysfunctional and, their abomination of policies and worldviews and things that nobody's going to be on board with. There's the Hollywood elite and they're, just whatever hyper liberals they have. A lot of the liberals aren't even, they're not even into this. There are a lot of liberals that are bummed out by the way everything's going. And the majority of people, it's like 80% is against the hyper liberal agenda, but it was able to be pushed through because of Trump. And so you remove Trump and you're getting rid of their catch-all. You're getting rid of their shield that's preventing them from taking the beating that they would have to take if they didn't have Trump. So Trump is keeping them going. Trump is keeping this process, just wrecking the show, and he's everything about it. Like, he's just so tired, so old. He's jumped the shark so much, like he's just over and done with. And you guys are the only ones who don't know it. Like, you guys are the only ones who don't see it. That getting rid of Trump would immediately pay benefits for, anti-democratic, anti-liberal people, anti-democrat party and anti-liberal people. You immediately would see the results. They would be scrambling to figure something else out, especially if Trump was embarrassed and he lost the primary to one of these other stooges. Like, he would just have to go away. It would be like so bad that he would, what a humiliating defeat, right? The guy who didn't want to debate his opponents, and he was riding this, MAGA wave. I don't understand how you can think this is a good thing. Like, it's not going to work out any better this time. It's going to be worse. And it's going to be like a constant battle. And there's going to be, more power grab. The same kind of power grab that was done the first time is going to happen again. And if you just think about all the things I've said here, there's probably so much more that can be said about it. And it just gets rid of the whole Trump-Biden era. Biden is senile and he can't do his job. The only thing they have on him is, the only thing they got going for him is he's not Trump. You take that away from him, and you got this old, creepy, crappy candidate that has a horrible favorability rating. And then what they got? They're going to go with Kamala. Who are they going to go with? Gavin Newsom, who ran California into the ground. And what's their platform? Like, how do they make one of those candidates likable or electable? I mean, you just have to put in somewhat halfway decent, and you would have a better, it'd be better than, all this. Get rid of Trump and Biden altogether. Put that whole era behind us instead of running this back again. It's just gotten painful to watch. They've been talking about Trump now. He's been the center of American politics now since 2015. So it's going to be, by the time the election rolls around, it's going to be 9 years. And then a possible another 4 years of his presidency, and then more impeachments, more indictments. And the Republicans will lose the House and the Senate if Trump gets elected, like what happened before. There's probably more that I'm not thinking about. I'm going to go do some yard work, and then I'll finish this voiceover just in case I remember. Sometimes I walk away from this and I remember points I was going to bring up. But you should be able to see everything I said. Why can't you? Like, why can't you see that Trump is a cancer? He has really no chance of winning. Even if he wins, he loses. If he wins, it's even like you lose. He loses, you lose. He wins, you lose. And it's just, a negative outcome. Like, he is not going to do anything but bring in more hatred, more negative feelings, more envy and division and all these things, right? And you can say, well, Biden's worse and all these other people. That's not the point. I'm not talking about Biden or DeSantis or any of these other people. I'm talking about you and Trump. And regardless of the competition, regardless of the alternatives, Trump is a known entity, and you Trumpers are a known entity. You guys just don't have the ability to see what's so obvious to the rest of us. You're just too locked in. You're too butthurt. You're too defensive. You just won't admit, yeah, he's a bad guy and you made a mistake. And I don't think it was a mistake in 2016. Like I said, I enjoyed Trump and his presidency, but they got him. They got him in 2019, 2020. Things were going pretty good for the guy. The economy was going, it was a false economy, but it was at least going in a positive direction. It was certainly better then than it is now, at least on some level. But he let them COVID him. He got COVIDed. You saw what happened. And he went along with it. They just kept on working him and bludgeoning him. And he opened up his own defeat by the way that they made him do all the COVID stuff. And he said he's the father of the, the boop, the Operation Warp Speed thing. In the video I just made, he talked about how they're not going to do this to him again. But, they got him when he could have stood up and, fought the battle that he needed to fight for us all. He didn't. He caved. We all saw it. We all know it, right? And you should know it too. So he sucked at that. And so, again, get rid of all the other people. Get rid of all the other candidates. Get rid of me. Get rid of any person criticizing him. This is between you and Trump. Trump is a disaster. You have to, rise up and realize this. Expand your consciousness. Grab some more IQ points. Do whatever you got to do. Wherever you get strength from. And just let him go and just realize any kind of fantasy you had, any kind of imaginative reality and hope that you had, the hopium that you have, any of this QB stuff, anything that you have that is causing you to warp reality and see this guy as something that he's not, needs to go, right? And it didn't have to go in 2016. Up until the part where he got worked on COVID, then it was time to go. Then it was time to realize it was all BS. I mean, even the QBs kind of started to realize Q was fake and Trump wasn't their savior when the election happened, the big event in January happened, and the way that all played out. Like, that was just an example of how it's going to be for the next 5 years. They have a winning recipe against Trump. They know how to work their base. They know how to work their people. They know how to play Trump. They know how to set Trump up to maximize their advantages against him. And, whether he wins or loses, they will use Trump to further their agenda. They know how to use Trump as a tool, as an asset to further their agenda. It's just there. And you're enabling them. You think that Trump's against them, but he's their biggest asset. He's their best player. He's their, he's the primary catalyst for all the agenda that's been rolled out. Think about what it was like in 2016 And the changes that have come in culturally, changes that have come in during the Trump era, right? And he didn't fight back against any of them. He's talking about them now after he's already let these things in. And like I said, as soon as you get rid of Trump, you get rid of Biden. If Trump's gone, Biden is gone. And, it doesn't matter whether Biden's gone or not. He's senile and he's being handled. But they're going to have to run a real candidate. And we'll see how that opens up, right? Then you have Kennedy in the mix in the debates. And there's just a different dynamic there. And, the Democratic primary will go a lot differently if Jojo Magoo isn't there. They could try to run somebody in, hand-pick somebody if you wait too long. But if you get rid of Trump now, again, I'm just saying this to a small group of people, it's not going to happen. But just know that you suck. Like Trump sucks and you suck. And it's not me saying that to you as an insult. It's you sucking and me doing you the favor of telling you suck and you're embarrassing yourself and you not being able to hear it. Like I'm your friend here. I'm a much better friend to you than Trump is. Your other friends are trying to tell you how bad Trump is and how foolish you look, and you just won't hear it. You just won't evolve into it and realize, oh my God, Trump does suck. And why does that? Why do I not see it? Why does everyone else see it and I don't? Right? Maybe re-examine your life and your point of view and figure out what's wrong with you that you can't see what's so obvious to the rest of us. All right, I'm going to go do some work and then I'll come back and finish this up. One more thing I want to add before I go do what I have to do. The reason I'm doing this voiceover video here is I already have a big video I just put up on my other channel, and yesterday I released a journey series, and then I have a 2-hour video on this channel that's waiting to go up. So I'm going to have a glut of content here. So I thought I would do this short video voiceover here, opposed to doing waiting for them to monetize my other video. I mean, it's just all the things that happen when they do that. It just wrecks the whole flow of it. But this way I can put up some content here, and then I can get back into a normal routine. Hopefully I'll be able to put the other video up here as well tomorrow. So this is Saturday, September 2nd, so September 3rd. Hopefully I put this up either tonight here on the 2nd or, whatever I do. I can upload tonight, see if it passes through, and see what happens there. And I can have that video at least keeping that channel going while I wait for the other video to get processed. And then, there's all these things I have to now think about. Because when I put out too much content at once, no one's going to watch 4 hours of my content in one day. I mean, people do it, but it's, who has time for that? I mean, it's just a lot. And, I'm making too much content as it is, and it's, hurting, I mean, it doesn't help my channel. But it's kind of necessary just by the way things are going. And so, anyways, I just thought I'd throw that in here. Let me go do what I need to do, and then I'll come back and finish this video up. Okay, so I was getting my haircut by my wife, and I remembered the most important point. Because this isn't about policies. It isn't about government. It isn't about anything to do with politics. This is about an ugly divorce. The powers that be are creating division, are doing everything in their power to create division. Donald Trump is their key guy. Like Hillary was great, but nobody loved Hillary. Like people didn't love Hillary like they love Trump. Trump is somebody who's both loved and hated. So he is he's like the phenom. He's the chosen one in terms of dividing a country. And whoever the Republicans elect, or whoever the heir apparent is for Trump, he's going to be hated. The Democrats are going to hate him, but they're not going to hate him like they hated Trump. There'll never be another Trump in terms of being a lightning rod. You Republicans definitely hate Hillary more than you do Biden. Biden's the guy in charge. Biden's, he's got his own little niche of hate now from the right, but not as much as Hillary had. Like Hillary was special. She was the most hated. People hated Hillary more than they hated Obama, and it was a long-lasting hate. And Trump has done everything to provoke the left, and all his decisions. He gets into these battles, and he just wants to destroy the other side or provoke them or whatever he does, right? Like there's no sense of extending an olive branch or something like that, right? If you don't love Trump, Trump hates you. Like you're an enemy of Trump. You got to think he's the greatest president, the greatest person. And, you've seen that with his inner circle, even his friends and people who have been loyal to him, his family, anybody. They just criticize him a little bit. The guy goes crazy, right? He loses it. And so, with that kind of person, there is never going to be any satisfaction. The left will never rest until Trump is gone. And Trump has done everything to make that a reality. And you can't control the left's behavior. You can't stop the left from being the left. But what you can do is at least clean up your side. And Trump is, again, he's a disaster politically. He's a disaster culturally. He's a disaster in every possible way. But this divorce thing, when you're in a divorce like this, and many of you have experienced it or been around it, you just need to do whatever you can to separate from the person. When I was getting divorced from my ex, there was, very little joint property. But I had brought stuff back from India that, was hers. Like she left when we were in Sri Lanka and we had stuff stored in India. And when we came back from India, we had more stuff than when we left with. And our suitcases, we could bring 50-pound suitcases. So this is me and my 5 kids. So there's 6 of us traveling to India and 5 of us leaving. And our suitcases we can only have 2 suitcases of 40 pounds, so we had 80 pounds each. And on the way there, we could have 2 suitcases of 50 pounds, right? And so it was kind of a nightmare, and I wanted to bring as much back as possible because we were going to have to recreate a life where we had nothing in America, right? And so some of the stuff from my ex just had to be chucked because she, abandoned the family when we were in Sri Lanka, and we just couldn't lug all of her stuff back. And some of it was heavy, like heavy notebooks and, things that were, it was homeschooling stuff, and she wasn't homeschooling the kids. She had quit on that, so all these things. And then we had shared stuff that was storage. My things were family videos of my kids when they were little, and just a bunch of other things that were, some of them were sentimental value. All my Sahaj Marg books, and I had lots of them. I had probably like 50 of them, and they're really important to me. And, my ex was already living with a guy when we returned to America, and about 1.5 years later, she still was holding up the divorce for no reason. And my lawyer finally, it was an out-of-state thing. She filed for divorce in her state. And I had an out-of-state lawyer I'd never met. He called me one day and said, let's just get this thing done. We weren't even really, it was in limbo. And she wanted one Saj Marg book, which, there was money that was taken that, there's all these things that I had a gripe about. And I could have, complained about. And there's all these possessions and things I was losing. Like I said, all my family albums and things like this that, again, I don't know if I'll ever care about those in the future, but I would have liked to have them. And I let it all go just to get the divorce done. Even though she was already moved on with somebody else, she was dragging her feet, so I had to just be the bigger person. And when you're in that kind of toxic energy, and that's what we have with Trump, it's just all this toxicity. The hatred for Trump, Trump's hatred for the left, and, it's just, it sucks. And it's still going to be there, but at least with Trump gone, it'll be, that'll just be gone, right? It's a divorce that needs to happen. Trump is never going to disappear himself. He's never going to take the high road or do what's best for us. And it just sucks for the rest of us. Like, aside from any sort of political, whatever it means politically and these other things, turning on the news and this constant droning on, another indictment of Trump and this thing and that thing, Trump saying this and him rambling on. He's like, very difficult to watch. Just bitter and whiny, and his victim consciousness and all of it. And, he brought it all on himself. He's just an a-hole. He just sucks so bad. Not that they don't suck, but he, has contributed to it by just the way he lives his life. He just sucks. He's a bad person. He's a little baby, little whiny baby, little Lord Fauntleroy. Grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he's just not a good guy. And as long as he's there, it's going to suck. And I'm saying this because, this is more important than anything else. You can get rid of the toxicity and see that there's no outcome. Like, he's not going to beat down the left. He's not going to come in and throw him in jail. He doesn't even have that power. Like, he didn't have the power in his first term, and they're not going to give it to him in his second term. He's at odds with the with the the intelligence community and all these things. And so it's just going to be more of the same, another 4 years of this but worse, and just hopelessness and despair and just all the rest of it. Another crappy election in 4 years, and the world's going to be more into the apocalypse, right? And so just get rid of this bum. Like, he's just this bad energy loser. I mean, just, for everybody else's sake. If you want to be a truther, if you're calling yourself a truther, you can't be supporting Trump. There's no truth in Trump. Trump is a big lie himself, a big arrogant doofus. Like, everything about him just sucks. And his whole thing is, everything he has is, about him, and it's just like it's just a bad divorce. Get it over with. Like, just cut ties, move on to somebody else, right? Well, if you don't have to vote, but want to vote, you vote for somebody else, just to move forward, just in some way to get rid of this dynamic, right? Like, we're having another election, like with two of the same people. Like, that just sucks so bad, right? Two old white guys in their 80s, like, dysfunctional white guys in their 80s running against each other, and that's the best we can do, right? Just, I mean, in terms of entertainment value, like, just move on. Cut your ties with Trump, then Biden is gone, and then we could have something else. We could have just something new, just something that's not Trump and Biden. You're just being difficult and obstinate. You're worse than a sheeple. You're just holding the line when it's so obvious that Trump can't make things better. Trump isn't going to make the country better again, and we'll probably likely just have some sort of another Biden presidency. If we have that, then we'll have Kamala Harris as the next president, really, because Biden's not going to last a full term. So you're electing Kamala Harris, who could never win an election on her own. She couldn't win a national election. She couldn't even win a primary. She couldn't win one state. She quit. She had no money and no support, and they made her vice president because she's worse than Biden. I guess she's even more unlikable. And you'd be bringing her in just by being, dishonest. Like, you're being dishonest about this whole thing. There's no hope with Trump. There's no positive ending. There's no silver lining. There's nothing good. It's a TV show that should have been canceled, and it's running seasons that are horrible, that nobody should be watching. Like, it's just, you're doing it because it's familiar, and you used to believe it, and you used to like it, but you don't. It's like you're in a bad marriage, and you just go through the motions, and it sucks so bad, but just don't have the energy to get divorced. Like, it's just, you can move on. You can, like I said, be a real truther. You don't have to vote at all, and let them do whatever they do. Like, have some bogus Republican candidate against some bogus Democrat, and see what happens with all that. But Trump is like a black cloud over our country. Until he's gone, it's just always going to be like this. Just to wrap this thing up, Trump's just being a dick, right? Like, everybody but his supporters, who are, I don't know, you can't say very much about his supporters, who refuse to accept reality, want him just to go away, right? And it was different when he ran the first time, because we didn't know what he was going to do. We didn't know he was going to suck, right? It isn't like something where Kyrie Irving refused to cave on something where he was right and stood up to the powers that be. The media, his team, the city, all these people, the haters. And it was because he was standing up for something that was right. It's not like that. Trump isn't doing that. Trump isn't a truther. You got to accept that Trump was never a truther. In fact, he was worse than a sheeple. He used the truth community. He found out what the truth community wanted to hear, a desperate group of people wanting to be acknowledged, wanting somebody to champion them, right? I mean, the truth community wants, somebody to, somebody official to validate our beliefs and say, yeah, you guys were right. I mean, that's what every truther craves to some extent. Your family members, other people who, have been throwing the authority in your face and, hey, well, that's not what the New York Times says or whatever it is, right? That's not what the government says. And then be able to throw it back in their face and say, we were right all along. Ah, you suck. We're not crazy. You are. That's every truther every truther has a little bit of that in them, right? Trump isn't that guy. Trump was never that guy. Kennedy appeared to be that guy. And then, he said that stuff about Palestine, which made his credibility get questioned. But he's a lot more that guy than Trump is, right? And so Trump, played the truth community. He used the truth community as a voting block and for support and other things. It's one thing to stand up to everybody and say, I don't care, I'm doing what's right. I don't care if you guys all try to crush me or do whatever. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to stand by my ethics. That's not what Trump's doing. Trump doesn't have any ethics. He doesn't have any morals. He's a little baby and things didn't go his way, and he left on a bad note, and he got rung up, and now he's just whining and finding a way to make himself a victim and finding ways to sell it to his supporters that he's really in the fight for them. He never was in the fight for you. He could have stood up in the beginning, right? All along in his presidency, his whole life as a billionaire. He's always about screwing the other guy, screwing the little guy, all the vendors he stiffed, he's a horrible, miserable piece of poop. And so he's just being a dick. He was not doing what he should do for the better of all of us. Just go away. Like you're just the guest that won't leave, or that guy at work. He's that guy, right? Trump is that guy. That person at work that can't be fired, so they just suck up resources and they don't do their job and make it hard on everybody else. Everybody hates them and wants to believe, and they don't. Just being a total dick. And you're enabling them. You're being the same thing. All you Trumpers, you're the same. You're that guy. You're the people enabling somebody to do that. When, just the forces of nature and everything is saying just go away. And like I said, he's a known entity, right? We know he sucks. It isn't like, hey, put me in, coach. Let me show you what I can do. No, we know what you can do. We saw you do it before, right? And he was doing okay, like, provoking the left, and he was entertaining. But then they worked him on COVID. They baited him into closing down shutting down the economy, which, wasn't doing well, but it looked like it was doing well. And then they beat him with the economy sucking after he closed it down. I mean, he, shut down the economy because they baited him into it, and then they campaigned and used that move against him. And he rushed out Operation Warp Speed. He wanted to be a big hero and show that he could do things faster and better than anybody else. And he rushed out Operation Warp Speed. The boop, right? The boop is, the regular boop is like for a swear word, like you mother boop, or right? That's just normal boop. But I think I've never said this before, but I thought people kind of understood. But the boop is like, you glitch it out because it's a boop, glitch it out because it's had the bloop, a bloop that has the bloop. Right? And he rushed it out, and he said he was the father of the bloop. And I'll show you I'll put together the compilation. I'll put the compilation at the end of this voiceover, just so you can, remember what a piece of crap he is. And then what he did during the election. And they worked him all along, and then they've worked him ever since. And now he just sucks. He's just he's just a bundle of bad energy. Just go away. And you guys should recognize that. And you're with him on that, right? And everyone's going to be saying the same thing about you. Just go away, MAGA supporters. Go away, MAGA Republicans. You suck. Like everyone's going to turn on you because they're just tired of him. They're tired of the drama. They're tired of the selfishness. They're tired of the division and just the Trumpness. Like people are just going to hate him and hate you, and that's where it's going. If you don't get that, then you're oblivious. There's no happy ending here. You're not going to be proven right. He's not going to fix the broken demonic system that nobody can fix. None of those things are going to happen. It's just more of what you see. And whatever was good about Trump is long since that ship has sailed. Anyways, here's the compilation.
Very long. We've instituted it before. 2 additional companies, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, the Johnson & Johnson's a one-dose, one-shot vaccine, so we're going to see how that works. That would be very helpful if that all came out, and I think it probably will. Also, they're showing tremendous promise, all of them, tremendous promise. We're very hopeful that the FDA will authorize the Pfizer vaccine within days. We've got to get it moving. And Moderna vaccine almost immediately thereafter. Large numbers of tests and samples have been done, so hopefully that'll go very quickly. If authorized, tens of millions of vaccine doses will be available this month, and we'll get it distributed very quickly. We'll have that all set, and hundreds of millions more will quickly follow. Every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get the vaccine. And we think by spring we're going to be in a position that nobody would have believed possible just a few months ago. You know, amazing, really amazing. They say it's somewhat of a miracle, and I think that's true. The plan we put forward prioritizes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders. Greatest achievements was getting the vaccine done in 9 months instead of 5.5 to 12 years. But the problem is, you know, we saved tens of millions of lives all over the world, but I can't talk about it because our base, our beautiful base of which some of you are there, you get angry when we mention the word vaccine. Don't get angry.
You did everything you could to get this vaccine out. I know where you
It was one
stand
of
on
the
the
greatest
vaccine.
achievements. We did it in less than 9 months.
To be able to do that.
Yeah,
But now it's taken a twist, right?
And then people don't want it, and it probably even affects the others because, you know, there's a big situation with a lot of people don't want to take the vaccine. Well, this played right into their hands. And they want me to do public service messages and everything about everybody taking the vaccine. And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. You know, to get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle. Fauci said it would take 3 to 5 years. He thought it was something that just wouldn't be that effective because it would take so long to get. I pushed the FDA like they have never been pushed before. I wouldn't exactly say they're in love with me. They have never. This is a very bureaucratic organization. I pushed them like they've never been pushed before, and that's why we have it.
The vaccine is one of the greatest achievements of mankind. We would have had in 1917, remember the Spanish flu, killed perhaps 100 million people.
Can you imagine if you had to go through what all of the countries of the world who are now getting the vaccine or soon will be getting it from various companies, but can you imagine if all of those countries had to go through what they've been going through over the last year? You'd lose hundreds of millions of people.
Let the teachers get the vaccine. They should get the vaccine. I hope they do. Again, it's something I'm very proud of. I think if we didn't come up during the Trump administration with a vaccine, you could have 100.
The best one, I'll play you it again. I got a better version. I found it on Fox, where Trump said he was the father of the vaccine, and it was a miracle. He is claiming divinity. The vaccine was divine, and his, you know, whatever. This should put a stake in the coffin of this MNFer's candidacy. I mean, this is, you know, even for the most hardcore Trumpers, you got to see this guy he got played. He played himself. He played you. I mean, just a, you know, absolute POS. Let's play that clip again.
And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. You know, to get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle.
Something that I forgot that probably should have went earlier in the video is the math is against you, right? The analytics. You Trumpers and Trump. The math is against you. He's pissed too many people off. He's wore out his welcome with too many people. And everyone but about 30% of the voting base wants to move on. My wife had an old friend who's a Republican, and she was a really big Trump supporter. And when Trump lost to Biden, and he did lose, regardless of how he lost, Biden is now president. And so, you know, that's how winning and losing works. She was pissed at Trump. She blamed him for just not being, you know, a little bit more congenial. I don't know what the word is. But that he didn't, he just pushed back all the time. He just, thumbed his nose at everybody's face, gave everyone the finger that didn't like him. And, you can't do that in politics. And now the math is against him, right? Can't beat the math. It's like, it's like gambling and expecting to win, right? You're going to win sometimes, but the odds and the math are against you. And with Trump, it's over. The Trump era is over. Even if he won a second term, there's no Trump, whatever. There's no policies. There's no cleaning the swamp. There's no building that wall. There's no locking her up. All these things that he promised, all the things he's saying to do about the deep state this, deep state that. He doesn't have the electoral math. He doesn't have the math in terms of the voting base, the public. The math is against him there. And then he doesn't have the power math. He doesn't have the power to do all the things he's promising because the people who are in charge, the real people in charge, don't want those things to happen. He's not going to save you. He's not going to save the country. He's not going to make America great again. And we know that now. Like, the Trump experiment is over. You know, and this great pumpkin thing, right? Waiting for the great pumpkin, the whole hopium thing, doesn't work, right? Put away your hopium and just accept the facts that Trump is not the hero that you wish he was. He's not the savior. He's not the hero. He's a selfish prick, a little Lord Fauntleroy fish boy, right? And deep down, he's a loser and a grifter and all the things that they call him, right? He's that guy. He's that guy. He's not the hero guy. He's the loser grifter guy. He's a con man who had to go bankrupt twice because his cons are always going south. And his 15 minutes are up. And it's only his dopey followers and supporters that didn't get the memo. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.